You are the helmsman of a $13 billion aircraft carrier. You are steering 100,000 tons of nuclear-powered steel through the open ocean at 20 miles per hour. To your right, just 50 yards away, is a massive tanker filled with millions of gallons of explosive jet fuel. Your job is simple: don't crash, but physics is working against you. As the two massive hulls slice through the water side by side, they create a terrifying phenomenon known as the Venturi Effect. The water pressure between the ships drops, creating a powerful suction that tries to pull them together into a catastrophic collision. If you steer 1 degree too far to the right, you cause a disaster that could sink both ships. If you steer 1 degree too far to the left, the tension steel cables connecting you will snap, whipping across the deck with enough force to slice a car in half. This is not a simulation. This is the daily reality of underway replenishment. It is the most dangerous maneuver in the naval playbook. While most navies have to return to port to refuel, the United States Navy stays at sea indefinitely, defying the limits of endurance by performing this high-speed industrial ballet. But how exactly do they transfer 3 million gallons of fuel and tons of bombs between two moving targets in rough seas? In this video, we are going to take you onto the wet, slippery deck to witness the engineering marvel of UNREP. We will break down the fluid dynamics that threaten to smash these ships together. We will show you the shot line, where sailors use rifles to fire the first connection across the waves. We will look at the adrenaline-fueled world of vertical replenishment, where helicopters act as aerial forklifts inches above a pitching deck. And we will reveal the massive global logistics chain that kept the USS Eisenhower fighting in the Red Sea for nearly 300 days without stopping. Buckle up, we are entering the danger zone of naval logistics. To appreciate the sheer scale of this operation, one must first understand the voracious appetite of a carrier strike group. A Nimitz-class aircraft carrier is often described as a floating city, but functionally, it is a floating airport and a mobile industrial complex. While the carrier itself is propelled by dual nuclear reactors that can operate for decades without refueling, the air wing it supports is entirely dependent on fossil fuels. The 50 aircraft on board, the F/A-18 Super Hornets, the E-2D Hawkeyes, and the F-35C Lightning IIs consume aviation fuel, or JP5, at a staggering rate. During high-intensity flight operations, a carrier can burn through hundreds of thousands of gallons of jet fuel in a single day. A single Super Hornet sortie can consume over 1,000 gallons. Multiply that by dozens of sorties a day, day after day, and the carrier's reserves, which hold roughly 3 million gallons, begin to deplete rapidly. Furthermore, the carrier is the flagship of a strike group that includes guided missile destroyers and cruisers. These escort ships run on marine diesel fuel, or DFM. They do not have nuclear propulsion. Every few days, their tanks must be topped off to maintain their speed and combat effectiveness. Thus, the logistics chain is the heartbeat of the fleet. The vessel that answers this call is the Combat Logistics Force Ship, the Oiler, or the Fast Combat Support Ship. Vessels like the USNS Supply or the USNS Arctic are the unsung workhorses of the fleet. They are massive floating warehouses designed to carry millions of gallons of fuel, thousands of tons of ordnance, and pallets of dry goods ranging from spare jet engines to fresh lettuce. When the call for replenishment goes out, the carrier and the supply ship engage in a complex navigational protocol. The supply ship usually maintains a steady course and speed, acting as the reference point. The aircraft carrier, despite being the larger vessel, is the one that maneuvers alongside. This approach requires nerves of steel from the helmsman and the officer of the deck. As the carrier approaches the supply ship, it enters a zone of complex hydrodynamics. The displacement of water by two massive hulls moving in close proximity creates significant pressure waves. Between the ships, the water accelerates as it is squeezed through the narrow channel. According to the principles of fluid dynamics, specifically the Venturi effect, this acceleration causes a drop in water pressure. This low-pressure zone acts as a suction force, literally pulling the two ships toward each other. The helmsman must constantly apply rudder angle away from the supply ship to counter this suction and maintain a parallel course. It is a delicate equilibrium. Steer too far away and the fuel hoses will part. Steer too little and the ships will collide. Once the ships are in position, the physical connection begins. This is not automated. It is a manual process that relies on the skill of the deck seaman. It begins with the firing of the shot line. A gunner's mate on the supply ship uses an M14 rifle adapted to fire a rubber projectile attached to a light nylon line. With a sharp crack, the line arcs across the gap and lands on the carrier's deck. This thin line is the first thread of the web. Sailors on the receiving ship haul it in, bringing with it a heavier messenger line, and finally the steel span wire. This wire is connected to a high-tension winch system that automatically compensates for the movement of the ships. As the vessels roll and heave in the ocean swell, the winch pays out and retracts the cable to keep it taut, creating a stable highline above the turbulent water. Down this wire slides the fueling probe. This heavy metal coupling, roughly 4 feet long, seats into a receiver on the carrier's hull with a mechanical clunk. Once locked, the valves open, and fuel begins to transfer at rates of up to 3,000 gallons per minute. To visualize this, imagine filling a standard backyard swimming pool in under 4 minutes, all while moving at highway speeds over rough terrain. Simultaneously, the transfer of solid cargo takes place. This involves heavy pallets of ammunition, food, and mail. These are transferred using a trolley system that rides along a separate highline. The coordination required on the flight deck and in the hangar bay is immense. Forklifts zip back and forth, moving pallets from the landing zone to the elevators. Gunners, mates, and aviation ordnancemen treat the pallets of bombs and missiles with extreme care. Although modern explosives are stable, the transfer of live ordnance between moving ships remains one of the most serious evolutions in naval operations. The pallets swing over the gap, suspended by the tensioned wire. Sailors use steadying lines, ropes attached to the pallet to keep the load from swinging wildly as the ships roll. It is a test of physical strength and teamwork. The rig captain, recognizable by a yellow hard hat, directs the operation with hand signals, ensuring the safety of the crew working under the tensioned cables. While the alongside transfer occurs, the air above the ships is filled with the roar of rotors. This is vertical replenishment, or VERTREP. MH-60S Nighthawk helicopters act as aerial forklifts, shuttling cargo from the supply ship's flight deck to the carrier. This method is faster for lighter loads and allows the transfer to continue even if the sea state is too rough for the connected wires. The helicopter pilots demonstrate incredible precision, hovering their aircraft mere feet above the pitching deck of the supply ship. A crewman known as the hook runner dashes under the hovering helicopter to attach a pendant to the cargo hook. Static electricity generated by the helicopter's rotor blades can deliver a painful shock, so the runner uses a grounding wand to discharge the energy before touching the hook. Once the load is lifted, the helicopter banks away, flies across the gap, and gently deposits the pallet on the carrier. This cycle repeats dozens of times an hour, moving tons of critical supplies without the ships ever touching. The human element of these operations cannot be overstated. The deck crews, comprised largely of young men and women in their early 20s, work in an industrial environment that is exposed to the elements. They wear color-coded jerseys and float coats to denote their roles and ensure visibility. Blue shirts handle the chocks and chains, green shirts handle cargo and maintenance, yellow shirts direct the movement, red shirts handle ordnance, white shirts oversee safety. Communication is conducted through hand signals and sound-powered phones, as the noise of the wind, the sea, and the helicopters makes verbal conversation impossible. They work in rain, sleet, and scorching heat. During the Eisenhower's Red Sea deployment, these crews conducted replenishment operations while under the constant threat of ballistic missiles and attack drones launched by Houthi forces. The vigilance required was absolute. Lookouts scan the horizon and the sky not just for navigational hazards, but for incoming threats, knowing that the ship is most vulnerable when restricted in its ability to maneuver during refueling. The logistical planning behind a deployment is a triumph of military science. A carrier strike group does not just randomly ask for fuel. The entire supply chain is modeled and predicted weeks in advance. Planners analyze the burn rates of the fleet, anticipating how much fuel will be consumed based on the projected operational tempo. They track the consumption of food, calculating the thousands of eggs, pounds of flour, and pallets of coffee required to maintain crew morale and health. The Military Sealift Command, which operates the supply ships, coordinates the movement of tankers across the globe to ensure that a rendezvous can happen exactly when and where it is needed. This global network of logistics is what separates a blue water navy from a coastal defense force. It allows the United States to maintain a persistent presence in the Persian Gulf, the Mediterranean, and the South China Sea simultaneously. Historically, the mastery of this technique was a pivotal moment in naval warfare. Before World War II, fleets were tethered to bases. During the vast Pacific campaign, the U.S. Navy realized that to defeat Japan, it needed to keep its fleet at sea for months. Admiral Nimitz and his logistics commanders pioneered the techniques of refueling at sea under combat conditions. This innovation allowed the U.S. fleet to strike targets, disappear into the ocean, and reappear fully fueled and rearmed without ever returning to Pearl Harbor. The modern stream rigs and helicopter tactics are the direct descendants of those wartime innovations, refined by decades of engineering and experience. Today, the technology continues to evolve. New tensioning systems use computer algorithms to predict ship motion and adjust cable tension in milliseconds, allowing for safer transfers in higher sea states. The future may see the use of autonomous drones for cargo delivery, further reducing the risk to human crews. However, despite the technology, the fundamental physics remain unchanged. The sea is unpredictable. A rogue wave or a sudden mechanical failure can turn a routine operation into an emergency in seconds. For this reason, every replenishment evolution begins with a detailed safety briefing. The emergency breakaway procedure is drilled until it is muscle memory. If the ships get too close or if a fuel line ruptures, the emergency breakaway is ordered. Alarms sound. The fuel pumps are slammed shut. The probe is emergency released from the receiver. If it fails to detach, deck crews are authorized to cut the lines with axes. Both ships immediately apply aggressive rudder angles to separate, their engines surging to flank speed. It is a violent, controlled separation designed to save the ships from collision. The professionalism of the crew ensures that these emergencies are rare, but the readiness to execute them is constant. The strategic implication of UNREP is profound. It serves as a deterrent. Potential adversaries know that an American carrier strike group does not need to leave the region to resupply. It can remain on their doorstep fully operational indefinitely. This persistence forces opponents to recalculate their strategies. They cannot simply wait for the Americans to go home for gas. The gas station comes to them. This capability was on full display during the Red Sea operations of 2023 and 2024. While commercial shipping was disrupted, the U.S. Navy maintained a continuous shield over the region. The supply ships shuttled in and out of the danger zone, bringing the millions of gallons of fuel required to keep the Super Hornets flying combat air patrols around the clock. The logistical tail of the fleet proved to be just as formidable as its combat teeth. Beyond the fuel and ammo, there is a psychological component to replenishment. The arrival of the supply ship brings mail. For a sailor who has been at sea for weeks, a package from home is a vital connection to the world they are defending. It boosts morale and maintains the mental well-being of the crew. The sight of pallets of fresh fruit and vegetables arriving on the flight deck signals a break from canned and frozen foods. The supply ship is a tangible link to home, a reminder that the logistical might of the nation is supporting them. The mail buoy watch may be a joke played on new sailors, but the arrival of actual mail is a celebrated event. The engineering behind the equipment itself is robust. The fuel hoses are reinforced to withstand immense internal pressure and external abrasion. The saddles that support the hoses on the span wire are designed to glide smoothly while carrying tons of weight. The probe and receiver mechanism is a marvel of mechanical engineering, designed to create a leak-proof seal instantly upon impact and release cleanly under tension. These components are subjected to the harsh marine environment, salt spray, humidity, and extreme temperatures, yet they must function perfectly every time. Maintenance crews work tirelessly to inspect and grease the wires, test the winches, and pressure test the hoses. A failure in any component could result in a fuel spill, an injury, or damage to the ship's superstructure. In the context of global naval power, the U.S. Navy's proficiency in UNREP is unmatched. While other nations are developing carrier capabilities, few have mastered the complex logistics train required to support them at range for extended periods. Operating a carrier is difficult. Supplying it at sea is an entirely different set of challenges. It requires a dedicated fleet of logistics vessels and a generation of sailors trained in the art of seamanship. It is a capability that is often overlooked in discussions of missiles and radars, but it is the foundation upon which global reach is built. As the two ships conclude their business, the process reverses. The fuel valves are closed, the probe is retrieved, the span wire is slackened and hauled back, the messenger and shot lines are recovered. The ships, which have been locked in their parallel dance for hours, finally diverge. The supply ship peels away, often receiving a traditional breakaway song played over the carrier's PA system, a moment of levity after hours of intense concentration. The carrier, now heavy with millions of gallons of fresh fuel and tons of ordnance, turns back into the wind to resume flight operations. The deck crews clear the rigs and stow the gear, ready to do it all again in a few days. This cycle of depletion and replenishment is the rhythm of naval operations. It is a testament to human organization and engineering. It turns the vast, inhospitable ocean into a manageable workspace. The suicide dance is a misnomer. It is, in fact, a dance of life, a transfer of energy that keeps the fleet alive and the mission ongoing. It is a demonstration of professional excellence where the margin for error is measured in feet and the consequences are measured in national security. Ultimately, the story of Underway Replenishment is the story of the quiet professionals. The bosun's mates, the gunner's mates, the quartermasters, and the civilian mariners of the military sealift command. They do not fly the jets or fire the missiles, but they make the mission possible. They stand on the wet decks, handling steel and fuel, ensuring that the United States Navy remains the premier maritime force on the planet. Their work is a blend of brute force and delicate precision, performed on a moving platform in the middle of the ocean. It is a spectacle of industrial power that ensures freedom of the seas is not just a concept, but a reality enforced by a fleet that never has to stop. If this deep dive into the engineering and logistics of naval power captured your interest, I invite you to join the Tactical Chow community. First, subscribe to the channel. We are committed to documenting the intricate machinery and human skill behind military operations. Second, click the like button. This simple action helps our documentaries reach a wider audience of engineering and history enthusiasts. Third, leave a comment below. We are curious. If you had to choose a job during an UNREP, would you rather be the helmsman steering the ship or the pilot of the helicopter moving the cargo? Let us know your thoughts. And finally, to see the other extreme of naval operations, you need to understand the silent hunters of the deep. Click the video on your screen right now to explore the physics and life aboard a nuclear attack submarine. It is a world of pressure, stealth, and endurance that contrasts